Let's compare these clips.
Honestly, speaking from the bottom of my heart, aside from belts and aside from it being him, I'm just ready to fight.
You can't intimidate me.
Don't disrespect.
You can't intimidate me.
Daniel, don't
Who do you
disrespect.
think you are?
Daniel, don't disrespect me. Can't put this.
Reckon you're ready?
Yeah, I'm ready now, yeah. I'm ready for the whale now, yeah.
Should I have my money on you on Tuesday night?
Well, I'm not a gambling man myself, but if you want to put a few bob on, it's as good as anything.
Footage from nearly 50 years apart highlights a shift in British boxing culture from quiet confidence to brash, often disrespectful behaviour. I recently focused on Tyson Fury's arrogant persona, linked down below, but now let's examine Anthony Joshua. Whilst I've always admired AJ, it's clear his demeanour has changed over time. Fighters have accused him of adopting a persona.
As soon as I move on from that, I'm not jinxing nothing, I'm not saying too much. But God willing, I move on from that fight Saturday as champion. Me and Dylan will fight December 12th. We've got the British title on the line.
When are you going to stop being fake and be yourself?
And then we'll move on to
when are you going to stop being fake and be yourself? How about that? How about you stop being what people expect you to be and be yourself? When?
In what sense?
To be yourself. This ain't you. This isn't you. I spent time with you before. This is not you. Stop being fake and trying to fool the people. This is not you, mate.
With his post-Usyk loss outburst, including throwing the belts out of the ring, widely seen as disrespectful and an exposure of his fake humble gimmick. While Joshua is likely not as humble as he's led people to believe, it's crucial to understand why he felt the need for this look. The historic roots of both the nice guy persona and the violent killer pretense in British boxing sheds light upon this. Leave a like for the algorithm, let's get into this. Now, let's transport ourselves back to the 1960s.
Well, let him do all the talking. He does enough for both of us.
You wouldn't care to predict how long the fight would go?
No, I don't. I never predict a round of a fight. But let's say if the fight's as good as he can chant, well, it's going to be a good fight for the public. That's all I can say.
He's going to knock you out in 9 rounds.
Well, he's getting his chance tonight.
Now that he's handed it in, I'm not really interested in McCann at the moment. I'd rather maybe wait now. Maybe this time next year I'll have the experience I need for a world title fight. Then maybe I would go chasing McCann. But seeing as he's now chipped in the British title, I think I can leave him alone at the moment, get off his back, yeah.
British boxers adhered to reserved, humble demeanours, refusing to predict stoppages and often shooting down remarks of foregone conclusions about easy wins. The boxing styles deployed mirrored these manners, focusing on solid fundamentals, a high guard, and fighting largely on the outside, away from the ugliness of slugging. This was how the British public liked its boxer, unproblematic. Henry Cooper was twice voted BBC Sports Personality of the Year, the highest accolade a British athlete can receive, and frequently appeared on TV shows up until his death. Ken Buchanan was beloved across Scotland and labelled as a massive inspiration after his life ended, and Jim Watt was awarded an MBE for his services to boxing before becoming a renowned ITV and Sky Sports commentator. By playing the game, you were rewarded. But then came a true star to shake up the boxing stratosphere.
If Joe Frazier whoops me, I'm getting on my hands and my knees, crawl across the ring, look up to you, say, you're the champion, you're the greatest.
It's befitting that I go out of boxing like I came in, meeting a big, strong bully that knocks everybody out, that everybody's afraid of. England can't produce nothing to beat George Foreman. Africa can't produce nothing to beat George Foreman. Japan, China, no country but old Muhammad Ali.
I told you, all of my critics, I told you all that I was the greatest of all time when I beat Sonny Liston. I told you today, I'm still the greatest of all time.
The fight of the century and the Rumble in the Jungle were watershed moments in British boxing. It exposed the population to Ali's otherworldly oratory skills and brash trash-talking style, showing the public an entirely new side to boxing bravado, which made many in Britain question the humility approach as a selling tactic. In my view, this led to a schism in British boxing. Fighters had noticed the success Ali had had, yet they were also apprehensive about pissing off the boxing establishment and wider audience. Maurice Hope, Britain's first official black world champion, conducted himself with a mixture of quiet dignity and iron-hard resolve.
Especially in the last round, and when you've got a hard fight, you know, and you hear the shouts from outside the ring. You don't really know what they're really saying, but you just remember to yourself that you are black, and it does give you that bit more enthusiasm.
He trod a thin line between somber humility and outright confidence, as he ultimately had to. Racism and prejudice were still rife. John Conti, on the other hand, was cockier in his approach, though far from Ali's brashness. He appeared on Paul McCartney's TV show, which, when combined with his charismatic, colourful personality, made him distinct from former British boxers.
We're going by Leeds and Sunderland, you know, you can never tell with these things.
He indulged in drinking, women, and partying, garnering the image of a bad boy to a certain degree. The tide was beginning to turn. The 1980s signalled a battleground between exaggerated personas and down-to-earth humility. In Roger Domanghetti's book, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, he notes, in the 1980s, boxing became one of the weapons in the battle for TV ratings, as the BBC and ITV scrambled to find sports to fill their schedules. Boxing became a regular fixture in the weekend schedules, with entrepreneurial managers like Frank Warren and Mickey Duff marshalling stables of fighters at all levels and all weights. Boxers were now faced with a choice: cultivate a flashy, cocky persona to secure televised bouts, or stick to your humble roots to curry favour with the masses. But remember, the kids who watched Ali's antics in admiration were now appearing on the scene.
But you know, when you're young and you get influenced by someone like Ali, because that's what influenced me, by watching him, and after that, I was hooked. Nothing else mattered. I was just training. I told everyone that I was going to be champion and a 23 British champion.
Confident, assertive, and a wildly flamboyant dresser, Lloyd Honeyghan didn't seem to care what anybody thought about him.
I feel like I just want to eat him. I just want to take his head off.
His trash talk was brash, alongside driving fast cars and appearing on talk shows. Contrary to the upright fighting style, he would sign up to slugfests, keeping his hands down and throwing hooks. However, in my opinion at least, his legacy has been largely forgotten, and he struggled to gain widespread recognition for his achievements when compared to others.
Well, I see it pretty good, you know. I feel like, well, in about 6 years' time, I hope to be a heavyweight champion of the world, not being boasty or flashy or nothing like that. But it's a rocky road, the boxing game. You know, anything could happen. You know, just keep the fingers crossed and keep training hard. I got youth on my side, so.
Conversely, Frank Bruno followed an entirely different approach, adhering to an endearing, humble demeanor. Despite not being the most slick, skillful pugilist, he effectively became a cultural star, garnering widespread support amongst the British public. He secured advertising deals with HP Sauce.
Revealed a VIP with an OB, tucking into a baked potato without HP. Everything's okay with HP.
Took part in pantomimes and was invited on talk shows repeatedly. The HP Foods marketing director later said, "Bruno is everything we Brits are, and that we wish to be known for: homely, unpretentious, and well loved." By playing the humble, self-deprecating role, he achieved much popularity and branding success. But other black British fighters like Lennox Lewis labelled him as an Uncle Tom, suggesting he had acted easily influenced and unthreatening to win over white audiences. Regardless, no one can deny his success, as underlined by him winning the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Lifetime Achievement Award in 1996. Essentially, as a British boxer, if you are fully endorsed by the mainstream media and fans, your income will likely skyrocket. This is an important fact to remember. In Ben Deer's The Hate Game, he highlights Billy Walker, a reasonable domestic heavyweight who lost to Henry Cooper in 1967. Due to his dashing good looks and down-to-earth, humble nature, he was able to retire at the age of 30, despite never winning a professional title. It was the money generated from endorsements and impressionable fans which enabled him to live comfortably whilst many better fighters were starved of profit. In the British boxing circuit, if you remain on the right side of public opinion, the rewards are endless. And this, I feel, is how Anthony Joshua's PR came to be formulated. Anthony Joshua made his professional debut in October 2013 against Emmanuel Leo. At the time, the British heavyweight division was littered with controversial characters who, quite frankly, had annoyed the British media and many of the fans.
I said some things that upset a few people. I said this fight's going to be as one-sided as a gang rape. That upset a lot of people, but it's going to be so one-sided. It couldn't be any more one-sided than a boxing match can be.
Call me out, call me any names, and you are getting it. And you know your gay lover, Tony Bellew? I'll fight him in between rounds. Thanks, Tyson.
Dr. Iron Fist, Vitaly Klitschko.
Not only were these fighters not exactly marketable, but their antics had left a vacuum for a respectable, likeable heavyweight to fill. Prior to becoming Olympic champion, Joshua didn't have the greatest reputation. Having been arrested for allegedly dealing cannabis and spending time in Reading prison for fighting and stuff, the public were already wary about the man from Watford. If he went around adopting the cockiness of a Chris Eubank Sr., David Haye or Tyson Fury, it would reinforce the notion of him being a big bully or thug. With British heavyweight boxing in dire need of a revamp, ideally through a charismatic, humble individual, the path seemed clear to AJ. Leverage your good looks and emulate a character akin to Frank Bruno, alongside securing results in the ring, and the payoff could be endless. Build a squeaky clean persona, respect your opponents, and the crowds will come.
Audie Harrison won gold in Sydney in 2000, James DeGale in Beijing in 2008, but neither has really managed to match that success professionally. Do you feel nervous about what may come?
Most definitely, it's exciting, it's nerves, it's everything wrapped into one. But I've just got to make sure I'm calm.
Along his boxing journey, he was hailed as an ideal role model by both fighters and journalists. Whilst Frank Bruno lamented Tyson Fury for his profanity, AJ ensured he showed respect towards other boxers before mowing them down. In 2017, after beating Klitschko and Carlos Takam, he finished 4th in the BBC Sports Personality of the Year award, underlining the mainstream support. Not only did he build up a massive following, including 28 million followers across social media platforms, but he has sold out Wembley time and again. He's secured brand deals with Under Armour, Hugo Boss, Land Rover, Jaguar and Lucozade. Additionally, he's appeared on mainstream talk shows like Graham Norton and The Late James Corden Show. Bear in mind, David Haye, Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury never received even close to this level of publicity or sponsorship from the mainstream media. AJ would obviously profit greatly, building a net worth estimated to be around $83 million, almost double that of Tyson Fury, and putting him second in the most lucrative boxer list. By ultimately following the Frank Bruno approach, he effectively established his position as a national treasure who was able to secure revenue outside of the ring.
Yeah, man. Stay humble, yo. You keep it real, man. I'm a gangster, me. Trying to be a good man. So what?
In fact, his conduct in defeat was also initially spotless. After his upset loss to Andy Ruiz in June 2019, the Brit was hailed for his humble reaction and showed incredible sportsmanship in giving Ruiz the credit he deserved. I believe he largely knew on another day and with intensive training he could better Ruiz, which perhaps made the pill easier to swallow at the time.
When I lost the first time, as I said, I never made no excuses. But I have my reason, and I always felt like, cool, I took my loss, but I'll get it back. I knew I'll get it back.
But the adage of nobody's perfect does come to mind, as AJ's image was centered around being flawless, rarely outwardly aggressive, and a minimalist. A role model and inspiration unblemished, yet everyone has faults. After his first loss to Usyk, AJ remained humble and understated in his disposition, yet something seemed off. This defeat was different. He had been entirely schooled and outboxed, and for such a successful pugilist, that fact will always be hard to take. He needed a different approach, one based more on intimidation, fire and aggression towards the Ukrainian, to truly impose himself on the rematch. However, this is where he became a victim of the persona he and the media itself had largely built for him. To be a top boxer, you often need a dark, aggressive side which you can draw upon in tough, challenging moments. Despite his humble character, AJ most certainly possessed this, yet his years of PR training and squeaky clean image made it both risky and difficult to fully portray this side. What if the brands left? What if the fans withdrew their support? In my mind, he felt trapped by this pitch-perfect persona, pressurized to show the utmost respect when he really needed to unleash a maelstrom of anger upon Usyk.
And I know people have high expectations of me as well. I think sometimes that's why they're shocked. And I have high expectations of myself as well, but that's why I feel like...
But mostly like, yeah, let's get the job done, instinct, stay focused, get the job done, and God willing, we're victorious.
He had become too safe and conservative, scared to enter brawls or fight on the inside. Becoming a national treasure killed his meanness. After the second Usyk loss, we come to his infamous post-fight speech. For many, they deem this as the watershed moment in the humble persona coming crashing down. From the bizarre declaration of not being an amateur boxer to dropping the belts out of the ring, the whole episode was both sad and special.
I'm not a 12-round fighter. Look at me. I'm a new breed of heavyweights. All them heavyweights, Mike Tyson, Sonny Liston, Jack Dempsey. Oh, yeah, you don't throw combinations like Rocky Marciano. Because I ain't 14 stone, that's why. I'm 18 stone, I'm heavy.
Likely through a combination of being hit in the head repeatedly for 12 rounds and showcasing bitter frustration after losing twice to a smaller opponent, AJ voiced his irritation to the world. After years of complying with this humble, good guy persona, he finally snapped, providing all too real evidence that he is in fact human. He does suffer anger, annoyance, and bitter disappointment, largely contrary to the image constructed for him. He's not a bad person as some have suggested, he just failed to handle the crushing disappointment accompanying the loss after giving his all and coming out second.
And sometimes people don't understand the pressures that are on people's shoulders. But he's never ducked a challenge, he's never shirked the pressure. He's always tried to give his time for people, and he's always tried to inspire the next generation.
But here was now the problem. The overly humble approach was largely null and void after the outburst. Brands were now ending their partnerships with the boxer. The media and many fans were wary of him, and he was basically in need of an image revamp to revitalize a stalling career. Nevertheless, this has put him in a tricky spot. Should he revert back to the humble nice guy image or take a new approach?
Seriously, is everything alright?
Intense stare down there.
I like that bit, I like the words. You don't normally see AJ talking, people tell them what's going to happen. People we're going to fight now, we're going to fight tomorrow. Either way, we're going to fight.
Sharp, relax. Relax. If you want to go now, let's go. Relax. If you want to go now, let's go. Chair across your face. Don't.
He now appears to be adopting this brash, tough man tactic, intimidating opponents in face-offs. Ultimately, I don't blame him, as he's likely made adequate money, become a household name, and is now ready to take the handbrake off and move away from the role of Mr. Perfect. So, in my view, it's not as clear-cut as saying he's a flawed individual who has simply adopted a facade to secure funds and fame. He's basically played the game incredibly well, right out the Frank Bruno handbook, cementing his image as a national treasure who will be remembered for time. The fans and media liked what they saw, further pivoting him into the part of a role model and humble professional, somewhat against his own doing at times. But now I want to hear what you guys think. Was this all a ruse to hoodwink the public into accepting a nasty individual? Has the aggressive, cocky side always been there? Or is AJ just a chill guy? Perhaps someone who has done no wrong and has carried British boxing on his back for almost a decade now. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. If you enjoy this content, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, it means the most. More is on its way. I hope you've had a nice Christmas and New Year. See you again soon. Cheers.